Hey guys, it's Matt Hickey from Pit Lane Parlay here with Jeff Lacey, my friend I've met at Road America. Did I meet you at Road America or did we meet on Twitter? I was trying to figure that out this morning.
We met on Twitter.
We did. Okay. I couldn't remember. And
Yeah,
now
and it
like
was actually
you're the guy I just like Snapchat with now like on a weekly
yeah,
basis about racing and stuff like that.
yeah.
So I met you
And it
on
was so
Twitter.
funny that yeah, and the Twitter thing was actually really funny too because I didn't realize that I had it locked on and I couldn't tweet. Like people that weren't friends of mine couldn't tweet. So you weren't following me back at the time, and I kept responding to you and following up on stuff, and
Yeah.
you were never answering. I'm like, what the hell is going on with this? And then I finally, like after months, realized that I had settings turned on that only my friends could see what I tweeted them. Why I did that, I have no idea. So I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden it was like the interaction started seamlessly.
Yeah, I was no, you could probably just assume that I was being a jerk, but that's what I would have done at least. But
No.
and then I know you told me at Road America this year you're not really on the Twitter that much, but I got to meet you, and then now we keep up on Snapchat. So I got the lucky end of the stick there. So that's pretty cool. So you're based in Wisconsin, correct?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
How did you get on this whole loving IndyCar and Formula One bandwagon?
Yeah. So actually, we're doing this recording at my work office, which is about 3 blocks from the Milwaukee Mile. So I get to see that every day. But so it's sad to drive past that and nothing's going on there, but that's a whole different thing. So yeah, I mean, racing's kind of a really funky thing how it got going. My parents, when they're in their like mid to late 20s, went to Road America all the time for the June sprints. And obviously back in those days, they didn't have camping on the grounds. So my mom's family had a trailer not far that they would stay at even outside of that weekend. And so they would go up there and naturally party because that's what you do in your 20s and have fun and watch race cars and then go to the trailer and have more fun. So I think for me, I remember like the end of the 92 season. So this is going to date me a little bit, but I remember kind of the end of the 92 season. I remember the start of Mansellmania in 93. I was 8 then. Um, and then in 94, my mom and dad took me to go to America for the first time. And we sat between turn 5 and turn 6. I mean, that's where most people end up going. And we went just for race day, and they had me go stand by this snow fence, which for me seems closer than you can get now with the cement barriers there. But anyway, I still to this day remember exactly the look, the sound when the cars exited the woods on their parade lap coming around, the glow of the Penske red on those cars, because obviously 94 is the year they dominated. But just the visceral feeling of those cars going past was obviously at that time nothing I'd ever seen before, but still to this day, and being in my mid 30s, I can still the hair on my arm still stands because it's so cool and it's something that has just really stuck with me. And then it kind of just took off from there. I watched every race I could. I recorded races and rewatched them. We had all sorts of like the 164th diecast. I'd recreate races on made up tracks and everything like that. It
Who
kind of really
hasn't?
took off. Yeah, exactly. So it was um it was love at first sight for sure. And you know, as far as Road America goes, we took a little bit of a break because obviously we live closer to Milwaukee Mile. So we started going to the mile in 95 and then went to the mile 95 through the very end there. I remember my mom even took off Monday and Tuesday in 2000 so that we could go to that race. Because that was the year Montoya won Indy for the first time, and then it got rained out on Sunday and Monday, and they ran it on Tuesday, and he won on Tuesday. So yeah, it's been great. I love it. It's just a sport that really it's a great sport because individually it's very challenging for somebody, but it's a very, very difficult team sport as well too. So while at times across different categories I get um, bored with domination, it's also a very impressive thing considering what has to go into being that good for that long or over a season or whatever the case might be.
So that means West Alice. I got grilled for that by lighting. Did I say that right this time? Okay.
That was really funny in that episode, by the way.
Yeah, I knew you were going to chuckle at that. I knew anybody from Wisconsin was going to give me grief about that one. So I take that. That's fine. So what I like about you two is that you are a big racing guy all around, big Formula One guy, big IndyCar guy. So, when we meet up, I have so much to talk about. And you're one of the people who, love both for what they are. You're not like trying to split hairs or say, if you like IndyCar, you shouldn't like F1 or vice versa, or versus some out in the internet world are that way. So, but would you prefer one over the other? Like if you could only watch one for the rest of your life, do you think you would be able to pick one or the other?
Oh yeah, easy. It'd be IndyCar.
Okay. So with F1, what is it about F1 that maybe lacks for you as far as compared to IndyCar?
Well, I mean, it goes in any sport, but it seems that there's just way more team politics in F1, and I don't. I think that comes from like the regulation side, the team side, down to the drivers, all that kind of stuff like that. I mean, I think it kind of trickles down through everything. I don't. It's a sport that, while it does promote greatness, I don't think that you can call yourself the pinnacle of motorsport if you get pole on Saturday and that pretty much sums up your race on Sunday then for the most part. There's kind of to me is like, well, then why do we have a race if whoever gets pole on Saturday is going to lead 95% of the race and win? But some of that comes down to technical regulations. Some of it comes down to how a team does with those regulations. That's why I think like the 2012 season was probably the season that captured a lot of people, just because you started that season 7 straight races with different winners.
7 or 8,
I believe
yeah.
it was. Yeah, I think it took somewhere in there before we had a repeat winner. So I think that was really exciting for the F1 fan base. Now, whether the fan base wants to get back to that stuff, I'm not sure. I think also that's what has made this season so captivating as well, because instead of keep hearing about somebody being close enough to run with Mercedes, we actually have a team that is, and a driver. I mean, I was thinking about it when I was watching the Mexico race. If we didn't have Max Verstappen for the last few seasons, I mean, we talked about how boring the Mercedes domination is, but without Max, really truly how boring would the last few seasons have been. And so I think for me, like looking at stuff like that versus what IndyCar offers you on a week-to-week basis or a year-to-year basis, yes, you can make the argument that every year Penske, Ganassi, like they usually end up winning the championship. But within that, in the races throughout the seasons, you get a lot more better racing, and there's better racing throughout the field. So you get the races, obviously, where somebody dominates, leads majority of laps, like you look at Herta at the end of this year with his last couple of races. But the season as a total provided a lot of excitement. And I think a lot of us in the IndyCar world that paid a lot of attention said this year was actually really, really entertaining start to finish. There was a lot of really good races this year. And so I think for me, that's what makes it an easier choice.
Are you hopeful for F1 next year with their change of the chassis and regulations?
Yeah, I certainly think there's an opportunity there. But I've also learned in F1 that I don't get too excited until I actually see it happen. I mean, it's the same thing I was just talking about. How many years have we heard, okay, this is Ferrari's year to, stick it to Mercedes, or this is Red Bull's year to stick it to Mercedes. And then it's like, oh, there's that season, Hamilton wraps it up with 6 races to go. And it's like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be realistic with it. While I am excited that I hopefully it does shake up the grid, I won't believe it until we actually get into a decent chunk of the season next year and see if it actually truly is more level playing field.
Right. And one thing I've learned with Formula One is that no matter what you do with the regulations, whether it's changing a certain engine specification or removing electronic aids or making the rear wing smaller like they did from 08 to 09, that they're designed to have an impact on the cars. A lot of times to slow them down, and what actually happens is engineers find a way to speed them up. So that is a great point with next year. Everything on paper says everything should be better on the racetrack, but are we going to find teams making weird, crazy adjustments to their cars that hamper the racing? I think finally they've cracked the code, but I think some skepticism is still in place for, is it actually going to happen? So we will keep our eyes on that, but I know I'm looking forward to it. And I think if the racing does turn out, a lot of people will be super pumped because that'll be awesome. So
and I think there's a good chance. I think there's a really good chance of that too, sort of to go on with it. But I think you look at teams like McLaren and Ferrari. I think they both have really, really good driver pairings. So I think they have a really good chance that if they can produce a decent car, that you could get back to having 4 potential teams that could be in the mix for race wins, or at least in for podiums. And I mean, it's nice to have the McLaren Ferrari battle. It's actually the one I'm watching the most this season. But with the pairings they have in these new regulations, I'm hoping that it brings at least them closer, and you can have a 4-team battle going for the top spotter for podiums every week, and it'll make the races a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, or what team was saving their resources and money this season and suffering to build up next year. I think it's always fascinating. Except Williams apparently has already botched that, as discussed in the last Pit Lane Parlay F1 episode. So that was funny. So picking either series, F1, IndyCar, or if you have somebody in an endurance racing or anything like that, who would you consider your favorite driver right now?
Yeah, I mean, for IndyCar, it's hard to go against Joseph Newgarden. I mean, I think he's kind of the fan favorite, and I know sitting with you during races, you get excited when he gets past, but
that's just because everybody around me is a Newgarden fan. Hi, Abby, if you're watching.
Pretty much, yeah, you are in the minority there, for sure. But
I like seeing Abby's reaction to your Jeff's wife.
Yeah, exactly. But I do. I mean, I like Rossi. I know he's had a couple rough seasons, both kind of just things in the team and the quote unquote cartoon anvil that has hit their team for the last couple seasons. But I think for him, with me, it is the fact that he reminds me very much of his boss. I remember watching Michael when you were younger, and he was always worth the price of admission. You always got 110% out of him. It was never, well, I'm just going to kind of cruise here, and it is what it is because I don't have a good car. He's still going to give you everything he's got and try and get the best out of it. So, I mean, I do like Rossi. It's hard to not pick American drivers because we heard for so long, well, if we just got American drivers in the series, it'd really take off. It's all we ever heard in the mailbag or wherever else kind of deal like that. If we just had young American drivers to cheer for, well, the series is littered with them. So I'm not really sure what more people want. But again, as Miller always said, racing fans, we're never happy. We're always looking for more. So there's always something to bitch about, as he says.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, for F1, I would definitely say Charles Leclerc. I think he's a fantastic driver, and like I said, if Ferrari gets their car sorted out for next year, I think he can really probably be pretty close to Max and Lewis. So I would say him for sure.
All right, so some great drivers there. I love Leclerc. Hopefully, I would love to see him win a championship at some point, but he's got a lot of time. So let's go into Road America. So
sure.
When was the first year that I met you? Was that 2017 or was that 2 years ago?
I think it was 2017 or 2018.
2017. Yeah, I guess I was there 2018 too. Was that at Jill's campsite or Lightings? I forget.
Lightings.
Okay, so
because that was, I think, when they still camped over by Lighting. There was a group of people that. Oh yeah, that was the first year that I hung out.
Yeah,
there was a group of people that camped right next to Lighting.
Yeah. So so let's just start with the basics with Road America. So I talk about it all the time. Lighting talks about it all the time. For you personally, what do you love most about just Road America as a whole?
I think, and I think the atmosphere, and I'm sure people, who live in Ohio or live close to Mid Ohio or go to Mid Ohio would say the same thing about that. But I think the atmosphere of it, obviously the track is a great track, but I think the ability to camp inside, everybody is really great. I mean, obviously I've met all you guys, but even the years that I've camped there, and just talked to people around where I was, because I haven't always camped near you guys or anything like that. But even the people around, everybody's just excited to be there, excited to talk racing or just enjoy everything. It's really cool at night. I think the first year, 2017, yeah, we took some friends that year, and they enjoyed themselves. But oh no, it was 2016. I'm sorry. It was the first year I camped there, and at night I just walked the track at night, like on my own, because I was like, I've never really been here at night, and so I wanted to like check it out and everything, and ran into like two or three drivers just out on their motorbikes, scooting around, kind of deal like that, checking out campsites and everything, and it was very casual. Like it's not like when you meet them in the paddock or anything like that. It was just a nice wave, hi, how you doing, everything like that. Good to see you, and it's so cool to see them in a different atmosphere than what you're used to under the time schedules during the day they have and everything. And when there's more people, obviously trying to get their attention as well. The food's great. I know I'm going to be biased in that comment, but the food there is some of the best track food you can get.
I got to stop you there because that's one of my questions. What is your favorite food there?
Easily the shredded pork sandwich.
And where do you find that?
You can get that at the Gearbox.
Okay.
Which
I don't know
is
if I've gotten
right
that
by
one
it.
yet.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, that one's really good.
Oh, I think I need to try that out next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because for me, it's obviously the atmosphere, the people, the beauty of the nature there. But
Yep.
I feel like a paramount piece of it is the racetrack itself. And we don't have too many European style road courses in America. So that obviously helps. Where for you is, I already know the answer to this, but for the people at home, where do you think the best place to watch the race is from? If you're talking like race, like practice, you can bounce around for sure. But as far as where you're going to go for the race, where's the best place to watch it?
Yeah, I think if you stay in the 5-6 area, but be kind of closer to 6, you're probably in the best spot because you can obviously the braking zone into 5, and then as they come up to 6, but you can also see the exit of Thunder Valley over into the last corner and then kind of up the front stretch. Plus, they've now added new video boards, so you can actually catch some of the other parts of the track, mainly like stuff down in Canada Corner that you probably wouldn't normally notice. You can see now. So I think that's the easiest one. I mean, for race. Plus, Turn 5 is probably going to have the most action during the race anyway, which this year's race was definitely the case. There was a lot going on in Turn 5 this year, so that was a primo spot. But yeah, like you said, I mean, practice and quals is really about just kind of bumming around and checking all the different vantage points and everything. I think you can get to some really good spots. The fact they opened up and that you can actually get down to the run down to Canada Corner and Kettle Bottoms and all that stuff like that, and out of the carousel is really big because when you get down in the woods, you really, really get a sense of how fast those cars are, and you get a pretty good idea of them exiting the kink. And it's amazing how much speed they carry through there and down the straightaway into Canada Corner. And there's actually a section in Canada Corner, like right at the apex of the corner, where there's a walkway and a porta-john. But there's a little bit of space that you can stand where you're not in the porta-john, basically. But you're maybe 15 feet from the corner. I mean, obviously there's cement barriers that kind of, form a point, but you're pretty damn close to the track, into the cars and everything. So it's a really cool point, not just for IndyCar weekend, but also if you're there for IMSA weekend or GT World Challenge, like you can get pretty close to the cars and see the varying strengths and weaknesses, especially in the GT cars and the different sounds and everything. But from the IndyCar standpoint, you can kind of also see who's carrying more speed based on downforce levels, things like that, who's naturally better on the brakes, and who's a lot, who can carry more speed through the corners. So I think there's a lot of really, really cool spots there, a lot of elevation change. And I think, as you mentioned, it being the rarity of kind of a European style track, at least feel why you get so many drivers, both American and foreign, that come from other series that really like the layout because you get a little bit of everything there.
I had you said Porta John. I kind of had something in my brain pop up. So I'm just trying to ascertain if this is a Wisconsin thing. Do you say stoplight or stop and go light?
Stoplight.
Okay, so that's just lighting being an idiot. Got it. I was just trying to figure that out.
He's from northern Wisconsin, so he probably calls it a bubbler.
I think he's from Kenosha, which is southern, but now he maybe picked up some.
Oh, true, that's right.
Or he learned something in Fargo. I don't know, or sorry, Grand Forks. Yeah. But I think one of the coolest moments that I saw from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, was I believe like right as we were in the thick at the beginning of the pandemic, didn't you and your son, and I think maybe Abby too, didn't you guys go to some sort of event at Road America for, I can't remember if they were like touring cars or something?
Yeah, so they normally have like a historic event in May. And then obviously when the pandemic hit, everything kind of got shifted. So they moved that event back into, actually, I was just looking at videos of it the other day, and they actually had it on what is normally IndyCar weekend 2020, but it's a historic weekend. It's a lot of club stuff. People come up from Chicago, but obviously with everything going on, they didn't get quite the turnout that they normally have from it. But there's still a decent amount, and it was cool to see different cars. Levi and I went again this year to it. We've also gone to June sprints as well too. So I try and get up there, as much as I can. Obviously, schedule gets in the way sometime, but I went to World Challenge this year, and I tried to get there for IMSA, but just wasn't able to. So I like to support, obviously, the track and get up there as much as I can. I did float the idea of doing NASCAR weekend just because I thought it'd be kind of cool, but I'm gonna just preface that real quick. I don't hate NASCAR, but I also don't watch NASCAR, so
well,
I can find a lot better things to do with 3.5 hours of my time on Sunday.
I'll get back to that in a second. So yeah, I think for me, seeing those like photos and videos that you were posting, like it might sound stupid, but it's like, oh, there's hope. Like, look, he's at Road America having fun. I think at that point, the schedule had come out as far as when IndyCar was going to Road America. And, you and I were following the news with Wisconsin, May, June of last year and their mandates. And I'm like, I'm pretty hopeful that Road America is going to happen for IndyCar as far as fans being allowed. So it really, like, for me, offered a lot of hope about, I'm going to get there at some point. Look, Lacey's there, so I'll get there. It's just got to hold on and be patient for, I think it was August. No. Was it August or July? July.
Yeah, I think it was in July.
I try to forget 2020, but I do remember. I do remember
it's easy
your.
To do.
Yeah, I do remember your photos and videos though. That was really cool. So I know Lighting has opinions about NASCAR at Road America. I think one of his arch complaints was the fact that he had to pay for parking, which there's a lot.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Road America is how affordable it is. For like a 4-day ticket package is very inexpensive compared to, 1 day at Formula One in Miami as advertised. You could get 3 ticket packages to Road America. Right. Don't pay for parking. You can walk through the paddock for free, things like that. So I just I know you said you're not the biggest NASCAR guy. I'm not the biggest NASCAR guy. Do you think it's good for Road America to have NASCAR? Do you not like the idea of it being there? Where are you kind of at with that?
I'm fine with it being there. I think it's great for the track. I mean, obviously, having that series there and the crowd they had for the race is really great to see. And don't get me wrong, I did think about going. I have friends that are NASCAR fans, and they're like, you got to go. It's fun, kind of deal like that. And I'm like, I don't doubt it. I have no doubt that it would be a good time if I went with you guys. I find the racing to be very boring. Is simply what it comes down to. But as far as the track, I mean, it's great. If you get all that added revenue, that's more things that they can do for IndyCar weekend or historic weekend or other things like that. It helps the overall picture of Road America. So in that regard, it's certainly a good thing, and I would never be like, no, they shouldn't do that or anything. I just wouldn't want it close, like really close to IndyCar weekend, where it might deter people from going to IndyCar and go to NASCAR instead. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it's NASCAR. They do it at all their tracks. I think it's dumb that you have to pay to get into the paddock. But again, that kind of speaks to the accessibility that IndyCar has, that you don't have to pay for those things, and you can get close to your drivers. And I remember 2 years ago, I was kind of hanging around Joseph's pit because I still don't have his autograph to this day. I've taken a couple of pictures of him. I've never taken any with him or gotten his autograph, but 2 years ago, I was standing outside his pit, and I had, one of his shirts on, and he came up to the group and whatnot like that. He didn't have a lot of time, but there was a couple of young kids in front of me, so I made sure that they got pictures or autographs or whatever they needed, because really I'm a grown man. Like, at the end of the day, I don't need to have Joseph Newgarden's autograph or picture for anything.
Do it for Abby.
It means way more to those young kids, because I remember being that young kid and trying to get pictures and stuff like that. So it's really cool that you can get that close and have that accessibility with them. So I think that's just a series thing more than anything else, that I don't like, but it's something that they've done for a while. And I was a NASCAR fan. I was a huge Jeff Gordon fan when I was a young kid. But I think NASCAR, to me, just kind of lost their way a little bit, and got out of racing and more into entertainment, and that kind of just lost my interest a little bit. So
yeah, I'm with you there. So one question I've never asked you is, as far as camping goes, do you like camping at the carousel? Do you think it's a pretty good spot down there?
I like it. The only thing I don't like is that I gotta go uphill to everything.
Yeah.
So I think for next year, so when they did come back and we first started camping, we were more up along the Marine Street or Marine Sweep by the Sargento Bridge up there. So not far from Lighting, basically on the other side of the woods from him. But I think because of because that year my buddy did the campsite and then he didn't renew, so I was starting from scratch, so I couldn't use his. So that's how we ended up down in the carousel. It's not bad, but like I said, I hate having to go uphill to get to everything, so I'm hoping to at least cut that in half, and get a little bit closer, and also have a bike for next year too.
Yeah.
So the Uber ride may not be necessary then.
Oh, well, just make sure Abby brings some money this year to give me some tips for that. Actually, and I guess I got to give those to Jill anyways, but well, that would be awesome. So we've talked a lot about a lot of positives. Is there anything as far as the IndyCar weekend at Road America? Is there one or two things that you're like, wow, I wish that was different, or I wish this was there, or anything like that for Road America?
I mean, overall, no, because I think they do. I mean, I guess it'd be nitpicky stuff, but I think they do a great job. Obviously, they have all three levels of the road to Indy there, which, I mean, especially on Saturday, there's track action from 8 a.m. until 4 or 5 o'clock at night, pretty much constant all day. And so I think, obviously from that standpoint, you're getting your money's worth. Like you said, the overall price for the whole weekend is not bad at all when you factor in some of the other things that you could do. I have kind of gone back and forth, and it kind of sparked again when you were talking about 2020 on the whole doubleheader thing, and whether they should have a doubleheader, be one of the weekends that has a doubleheader or not. And I kind of go back and forth with it. It was cool, but I don't know if it was cool because it was a one-time thing. Like, I don't know if it would be as cool if it was every year Road America had a doubleheader.
I get you.
So
I think it's nice when it like builds up the hype to Sunday if there's just one, with practice, and then qualifying was so intense, and with Joseph and his tire strategy, it's like, ooh, he's gonna get him on Sunday now. Obviously, we know how it ended, but it wasn't because of strategy or his fault. But I mean, doubleheader, it's like more for your money, but is it better? Is like the question.
Yeah, exactly. So I like, that's just kind of a nitpicky thing, or it's kind of an ancillary thing, but I think for me, I don't get too into what I didn't like about the weekend, because
what?
for me, the overall was that I got to go to the race.
How dare you?
I know that's bad to say, but I mean,
so un-American of you.
I know, right?
You must not be on Twitter anymore.
Exactly right. I'm not. I don't complain nearly as much anymore. But I mean, honestly, I think it too. Some of it is a little bit of age, and I'm not acting like I'm in my 60s or something like that. But you learn to enjoy the weekends and the time and everything like that. And I think meeting all you guys and hanging out with all you, you focus more on all that stuff and not, well, was practice at the right time or was race start at the right time or something like that. Like, I mean, that's all small stuff. That's individual. I think there's you get to go to the racetrack. Anytime you can do that is a great thing. I still pull into the racetrack and as you're getting close, roll the windows down to see if you can hear what's going on or have that same feeling you did when you were a kid and you were going to the track. At least for me, that's how it feels. So I think just being there, even when we go to the historic weekends, it's still kind of the same feeling. So I think just being at the racetrack is super cool for me. So I don't get too much into the whole like, oh, that was terrible or I didn't like that or whatever. And certainly you can have that. I'm not saying that's wrong or anything. Just me personally, I just enjoy being at the track in general. So I try and focus on all the positives of it.
That's so refreshing. I think we need more of that.
Yeah,
I know. And then, like, you're like one of those people where, people say that on Twitter, and then there's people who actually do it, and you're the kind of guy who actually just like is there for fun. I don't think I've ever seen you. I think there was what was that game we played? There was a card game we played, and I think you were getting schooled. And
I was trying to teach you guys how to play hockey.
That's the one. Oh no, you were schooling us.
It did not go well.
Well, yeah, you were because there was a couple people who didn't understand, but even then you were still laughing and having fun. So, all right, so I'm gonna wrap it up.
I think part of it. One more thing, I think too, because and I know. I think we've talked about it, as you go through school, there's not a lot of racing fans. So a lot of the time when you're a young kid, you're going to the track by yourself or with your family. You weren't going with a lot of friends or anything like that. So I think it's even more enjoyable now that you get to go to the racetrack and hang out with your friends and have a good time. And even like Lighting and I went to the SRX race at Slinger this summer and everything. Like it makes it much more enjoyable because you've got other people who are passionate about it too that you get to enjoy it with. So I think that is the other reason why it's easy to focus on the positives of the whole weekend.
Yeah, we get to like dust off our random racing facts to spew into stories and things like that. And like people actually speak the same language as you in racing. So yeah, I really like that. All right, I'm going to wrap it up with a kind of a two-part question. So the first one, so we're out of Road America now. So the first one is, do you think Max is going to hold on to the championship?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't think Lewis is going to come back? You think Max has got this one?
Yeah, I think, both of them are pretty even on engine reliability and number of engines going the rest of the way. The Red Bull certainly looks to be stronger at this point. I guess I would say don't ever discount Lewis. But, they're trying to put this whole pressure on Max. This is your first championship, you should feel pressure. And I just don't think he's that type of person. I don't think he cares that he's battling Lewis Hamilton. I don't think he cares how many championships he has. I think Max thinks he's the better driver and he's going to win. So I just think he has all the things that he needs this year to be able to do it. The Honda certainly looks to be pretty powerful. I think some of the last races could be curveballs because you don't really know who those tracks suit a little bit better. But I think if he wins in Brazil this weekend, that is going to be really hard for Lewis then.
Yeah, because he'll have almost a one race gap then too if he wins in Brazil.
Yeah.
No matter where, I mean, depending on where, assuming Lewis finishes second, he will almost have a one race gap. All right, and then who's your way too early 2022 IndyCar champion prediction?
Well, it's hard to go against Colton Herta. Just the way he finished the season. But I think you and I discussed this, and I know it sounds biased because he's my favorite driver, but probably Joseph Newgarden. Again, if you look at his stats at Penske and where he's finished in the championship, it's really hard to pick against him. I think other than his fifth place in 2018, he's finished first or second. So it's really hard to go against that. He's got to be in contention there. So, but I would say I would take him winning Indy over a championship.
Yeah,
as
I
soon
don't.
as possible.
I almost think he's probably in the same boat there too, since he's got the 2 championships. All right.
Yep.
I think that's all we got for the day. I really appreciate your time. I think I'm going to direct people to your defunct Twitter account. You have an Instagram though, right? If people want to get in touch with you.
I was gonna look at putting this up on Instagram and hopefully get some more stuff out there for the Pit Lane Parlay group too as well.
Sounds good. So I'll share his Instagram in our bio if you want to reach out to him and talk to him about anything. But Jeff, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll see you in June.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Thanks.